Welcome back. Today we are going to be giving you a step-by-step system of process to crush phone fear forever and watch your deals skyrocket.
That's right. Almost every real estate pro hits the call reluctance wall now and then. Rejection? Nerves? Or is it just that fear of getting something wrong? It's all part of the journey. But breaking through it is vital to seeing your real estate goals come to life. So we're going to give you a step-by-step guide over 2 podcasts to making calls like a pro with confidence and consistency. We're going to cover 4 topics over 2 podcasts. These are the 4 topics: commitment and preparation, mindset and strategy, efficiency and effectiveness, and organization and growth.
So, Julie, let's tell them where they can get the notes, because there are a ton of notes for today and tomorrow's podcast. Just go to harrisrealestatedaily.com. We talk about it every day on the podcast. You must be a subscriber to harrisrealestatedaily.com. It is really your go-to source for all things really about this podcast and real estate and the things that are going to put you in a position to help people make a lot of money, especially rolling into the new year. All of our coaching, all the things that we help you guys to understand is always practical, tactical, but ultimately you have to get into action. And the way you're going to do that now is by subscribing to harrisrealestatedaily.com. Just go there now, drop in your email address. That's all you've got to do. And then remember, you've got to pop back over to your own email and you got to confirm you want the subscription. And after that, you'll start receiving our daily notes in your email, and you also receive that day's podcast. So just go to harrisrealestatedaily.com. All right, Julie, let's go to part 1, commitment and prep, setting up for success.
All right, now, number 1 is number 1 for a reason, and here's how it goes. Commit to actually overcoming your call reluctance. Don't keep on kicking that can down the road. The success you want, it starts with lead generation. Sporadic effort gives you sporadic results. You might say sporadic, calls gives you sporadic cash flow. Nobody wants that. But proactive lead generation that's consistent equals predictable success and predictable income. So make it priority 1. And when I was reading that, it reminds me of a lot of the work that I do with our elite coaching clients, where it's not so much at their level that they don't know how to do it, they just don't want to do it. And it's the thing that gets procrastinated. And the way that we overcome that is having a serious conversation about their proactive lead generation, i.e. prospecting mindset, where you have to take that time in your schedule as seriously as you would a listing appointment. You'd never reschedule a listing appointment. You'd never show up late for it. You'd never skip it, would you?
Well, ultimately, everybody knows that if you want to have the shortest path from, effort and results, it's going to be by having direct conversations with folks. But what does everyone do? They rationalize that, I'd rather have, why would I want to, make a call? That's only 1 for 1. I make this effort, I get this result. Or whereas I could write a big email campaign, or I could do a big social media campaign. And then it's my effort that I put in once to make the video or whatever. And then it gets served out thousands and thousands of times. Isn't that more of an efficient use of my time? Hell yeah, it is. Of course it is. But it's not a more effective use of your time. That's the difference. Don't get seduced by the idea that you can delegate the heavy lifting of real estate. And I'll give you guys a really, really good example. Lance Kenmore, he is Julie's coaching client for a long time. And I think Lance and Karen, what do they traditionally sell? 400 homes a year or something?
Yep, 300 to 400
a
year.
Like most of the market right now, the market's a little bit slower. And so they're down on listings and they're having to, do some things that they maybe haven't done in a long time. So I'm having him on the podcast. You guys should watch this. It's a video on YouTube too. And we're talking about, okay, let's talk about your centers of influence and past client, Lance. And he tells me about what he's doing. He tells me about the holiday things that they're doing, all these other great things they do every year. But what he'd stopped doing was actually making the calls to the people that, for example, on his list, which was massive, stopped making the calls to the people that, say, for example, had tried to send him or successfully send him a referral. He maybe should call those people every single, or rather, he should be calling those people now for sure at this time of year, but probably calling them every single month. He needs to get in front of those folks. And so this conversation went back and forth, and it was kind of funny because he realized that he could probably, with maybe 10 hours or less, generate probably 20 really solid listing leads. Whereas all of you listening, for the most part, you don't have that level of confidence because you're still trying to figure out whether you actually have to make the calls. The calls are where the action is because everybody else is doing things digitally and passively. The calls do take skill. The calls do require you moving past your ego and how are they going to perceive me if I'm calling them? Let's just address that as a mindset point,
sure,
okay?
Absolutely.
When was the last time somebody that this is a question for you, dear listener. When was the last time somebody that you knew, loved, and trusted called you? Seriously, when was the last time somebody called you to have a meaningful conversation that was designed to bring value into your life, to make you, frankly, thrilled that you had the call? When was the last time that happened? Some of you, you're not even going to be able to come up with an answer, are you? Because everybody does things passively. They do the texting and the messaging and the WhatsApping and the videoing and all the rest of it. But the call is what's going to make you special because so few people do it. All this is, ultimately, it's a very effective way, obviously, to generate leads and create a lot of income. But in a market like this, where everyone else is essentially taken up and basically planted their flag in the world of passive lead generation, being a proactive lead generator definitely gives you an unfair advantage in the marketplace because you'll be one of the only people calling them. You'll be the only person that's calling them, bringing value on that call, and they'll look forward to your calls. That's the reality.
And also, it doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah, how about that?
There's that.
There's no referral fees.
No. All right, number 2, know your scripts. Don't let "I don't know what to say" hold you back or how to say it. Scripts provide a roadmap for effective and engaging calls. Remember that knowledge equals confidence and ignorance equals fear. So it's easy to solve the "I don't know what to say, I don't know how to say it." And you can't get in your own way by saying, "Oh, I don't like to be scripted." You're scripted all the time. You use the same scripts talking to your spouse, talking to your kids, telling your dog what to do. You use scripts. So don't be weird about that.
Well, scripts are just conversation outlines. Some of you guys repel the word script. Stop saying script. It's just a conversation outline. That's it. It's a series of questions that are designed to essentially help the person you're talking to and yourself arrive at the same place, with them deciding to do business with you or not, frankly. That's all a script is. It's nothing more fancy than that. It is not you trying to, we're not trying to get you to say things that aren't necessarily how you would say them. Or remember, the steps for learning scripts is first you want to memorize them, or rather, first you want to memorize, then you want to internalize, then you want to personalize. So we do want you to memorize the script because it's important that you understand the flow of the questions, but then we want you to internalize it. That's when it becomes somewhat intuitive, and that only comes from actually doing it, working on the phones and having conversations with folks, and then personalize it. What so many of you have done, if you've taken scripts that you found online, usually for free, hey, I got an idea for you. There's a reason those scripts are free online because they have the equivalent value. And then what you guys do is you take the scripts and then you overly personalize them, and then they don't work because you didn't understand the flow of the script in the first place. Again, maybe you were just using a crappy script. That's possible too. So a script is nothing more than a conversation outline. Point number 3, get into the zone.
What does that mean? Well, find your pre-call mojo. We talk about this in the Harris Rules book, by the way. Whether that's listening to your favorite music, exercising first, maybe both, or a quick role play session, stick with it and make it routine. Do this on purpose. Don't just wing it and do it when you feel like it or when you feel desperate for a deal. Have an actual lead generation zone in your mindset, even where you do it, how you do it. Do you have a mirror in front of yourself? Do it without distraction. Don't try and make your calls effective if you're hungry, if you're tired, if you're just squeezing it in between appointments. You've got to actually have some mojo to this.
There's a ton of little micro steps. Julie was just touching on this. So first of all, never sit down when you're like Julie and I are standing up right now. We always stand up when we do the podcast, and we stood up when we stand up when we coach, and we stood up when we actually prospected too, when we were having conversations with decision-making adults about buying or selling real estate. So standing up is important. Don't worry about how fancy your stand-up desk is. You can just use just about anything. Okay. Number 2, some of our coaching clients have used little treadmills to keep the energy flowing while they're on the phone. So they're on these little micro treadmills standing up, and they're having, obviously they're doing over the phone proactive lead generation. So that's another powerful thing. In your environment where you're going to be doing the lead generation, have, Julie said, a mirror so you can see what you look like, because what you look like is what you sound like. Because if you're not smiling, even if you have to force yourself to smile, they can hear it in your voice. You guys know that that's true. If you are calling somebody and you sound droll, they're not going to want to be on the phone with you. So do everything in your power to sound energetic and enthusiastic, even if you have to fake it, because what's going to happen is your physical state will follow your mental state will follow your physical state. And think about this. If you start, smiling and walking confidently and putting your shoulders back, and you start acting confident, acting as if you were already at the top of the hill, right? What's going to happen is your mental state will follow. What a lot of you do is you spend way too much time working on your mindset, thinking that somehow it's a function of just another dream board, or a function of just another finding my big why, or all these other things. So you get lost in the sea of mindset, whereas the ultimate hack is you put your physical set in right order, and then your mindset will automatically follow. And I want you just to internalize what I just said, because it'll save you so much time and frankly save you so much money buying self-help books.
Yeah, but you do have to take it seriously. You have to do it on purpose. You have to, I like the mirror because it helps you look like the person that you would want to transact with, right? It does make you smile more. It does give you more energy. It gives you feedback.
And put if Julie and I are still prospecting, I'd have a picture of Julie in there. I'd have a picture of Zoe in there. I'd have a picture of, Max, our French bulldog, in there. I'd have a picture of other things that, would make me feel, a place mentally and emotionally of excitement. I'm working towards maybe a particular goal. I'd have that picture up there. You guys get it? So you need to actually mentally and emotionally hack yourself. And then what will happen is it gets easier and easier to do. Don't just work when you feel like it. Your feelings will always betray you. And again, I know that every time I say that, people don't like it, but it's true. Why will your feelings betray you? Because your feelings change constantly. Your feelings are going to be something that if you are only going to work when you feel a certain way, if you're only going to do over the phone prospecting when you feel a certain way, something that is you're never going to feel like doing it.
Nobody's ever felt like
exactly,
that
ever. Right, that's true. So yeah, then you're never going to do it. That's the point. But you've got to do what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level. And that does require setting your feelings aside and realizing when you lead with your physical state, when you're doing the exercise, sure enough, after you've been on the treadmill for 15 minutes, all of a sudden you start feeling like actually being on the treadmill because the endorphins start to kick in. You guys get the point here? The same thing applies to doing this type of work as well.
That's right. If I ever only worked out when I felt like it, I'd never work out. I know you agree with that.
100%.
All right, number 4, set clear and specific goals. How many contacts, that's a conversation with a decision-making adult about real estate, do you need to reach for your income goals on a daily basis, on a weekly basis? Aim for quality conversations, ideally 1 appointment per every 10 to 15 contacts.
1 pre-qualified appointment.
Yes, thank you. And keep moving forward. It's not just doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at a high level. It's doing it repetitively and doing it systematically. But it is important to set clear goals. So let's talk for a second about what are realistic goals. Let's say go ahead.
Before you pop off that, how are you going to feel, dear listener, if every single day you walk into your zone that we just described previously, and you have the aptitude and the desire because frankly you've got our scripts in your in a coaching client, so you know how to do it. How is that going to make you feel every single day when you wake up in the morning knowing you can set 1 pre-qualified, ideally listing appointment a day? How does that make you feel? How does that make you feel? Be honest. Knowing every single day you can set 1 pre-qualified listing appointment. Some of you are going to feel overwhelmed by that. Well, let's worry about that, right? I mean, feel overwhelmed because you have too many opportunities. Come on now. So 1 pre-qualified listing appointment. If you go on, let's say, only 4 appointments per week, and you end up taking, say, 2 listings, for some reason you're just not good on the appointments, you still got to work on that, and you're in most of the markets in the country, you're going to be generating essentially what amounts to $24,000 in new closable transactions per week.
Per week. How does that make you feel?
That's $1.2 million a year. So if you could wake up every single day knowing that your mission in life today, business-wise, is to set 1 pre-qualified listing appointment, and what would you stop doing, right? So if you are confident in your ability to pick up the phone and make those contacts and set those appointments, and what would you stop doing? You would stop doing all the things that you already know in your heart and soul that aren't getting you to your goals. You would stop doing all the branding, the social media. Maybe you still want to do it. Oh, you still love the idea. It's a creative outlet. I get it. It's fun, right? But you're going to do that after you set your pre-qualified listing appointment. And then what you're going to do is you're going to build up your magic number of listings. You're going to have a certain number of listings. And then what you'll discover is you don't want to do the social media and the marketing and all the other stuff anymore because you have now cracked the code and you actually know how to make money consistently. Oh, and by the way, did I mention the skills necessary to get to that point? They're not really that hard. It takes time, but really what it takes more than anything is moving past your resistance, moving past your fear of rejection, moving past all these, things you've got in your head about doing this type of work. On the other side of that is all the financial freedom that you could possibly want. Now, I'm going to give you an off-ramp for this. If you prospect for a high level for a long period of time, and let's say you get to the point where you're making $1 million a year, or $500,000 a year, or $250,000 a year, $20 million a year, whatever the number is. You run your business efficiently because you're not paying referral fees for those closings. You're earning a lot of net profit. Then you start investing that money in dividend-paying stocks. So if you invested, money over time, let's say you did this consistently for 10 years, and let's say you were able to save up a few $1 million, that's going to generate realistically about $300,000 a year in passive income from dividend-paying stocks. right? That is your off ramp. So if you're willing to do what you don't want to do and you don't want to do it, at the highest level for a long period of time, relatively speaking to what everyone else tells you, oh, somebody just got into real estate and they're a millionaire today. Right? So if you're willing to really, truly drill down for a long period of time, you can make yourself rich where your money works for you and you no longer work for your money. That is what we teach you to do in Premier Coaching. So remember, just go to premiercoaching.com or text the word Premier to 47372 and you can join Premier Coaching right away. Point number 5.
Yes, and thank you for highlighting that definition of financial freedom, because that should be what inspires all of you.
Let's make this personal, okay?
Sure.
So Julie and I started in real estate when we were in our early 20s in our first year in the business, and this is documented. You guys can research this yourself. We had all kinds of awards and accolades. We sold over 100 homes our first year, one house at a time. This wasn't, we didn't hit any home run or list a subdivision or anything like that. FSBOs, expireds, working open houses, all the real things, right? So then what happened is we became successful and we became somewhat famous because of what we'd done. We were, NAR made us there. They had a special award. It was, Rookies of the Year, and RE/MAX would fly us to different regions. And in the day we were, we had more attention than we knew what to do with. That's for damn sure. And so what happened is we started getting and listening to other, top producing agents around the country. And they were all, remember, this is the 90s, they were all loving marketing and advertising. And they were doing everything possible to basically, essentially have the lead call them so they didn't have to call the lead. And Julie and I got seduced by it. I remember going to a Howard Brinton conference. And I remember Julie and I got into real estate so that one day we'd have enough assets. The assets were essentially creating enough passive income that we'd no longer have to work. That was always our goal. But we got, we co-opt our own ambitions and potential when we went to these conferences and we run into all these highfalutin, so-and-so, this is so-and-so, they sell $1 billion a year and all the rest of it. Well, we got to know these guys, and almost to a person. None of them had any real net worth. None of them had any passive income. All of them were buying their business. They had tiny little margins in their business, but the headline was so-and-so sold 500 houses last year. But so-and-so basically was 1 or 2 bad months away from being broke. Nobody told you that. This was back in the 90s when the margins were better. Okay? This is back when you actually could have a buyer agent where you could make a really good profit off them. This was before Zillow. So this was back when, marketing and branding and advertising was ads, postcards, doing things like that. Real expensive stuff, but nothing as expensive as what you guys are doing now. And here's the other challenge you've got. So the marketing and branding, the buying the business, it does generate leads and you will get closings, but the profit end of it sucks. That's the ultimate problem with it. It's not that it doesn't generate business. It does. It just doesn't generate enough net profit. Now, fast forward to 2024, 2025. Have commissions, dear listener, gone up or down? Have, all the things have gotten tighter. Buyer agents want more money. All these things. So and a lot of you are paying ridiculous referral fees, 40% to Zillow, plus now, depending on what level you're at, $10,000 flat fee per month. Holy tamale, right? So you're making no money in some cases. You're losing money on every transaction. And yet a lot of you still believe that you're supposed to market and advertise. So what Julie and I did was we started out being proactive lead generators. And we were very successful and we had killer margins. Then we started to get seduced by the idea of, you can do why do one-to-one when you can do one-to-many? So we started doing that. And we did a lot of marketing and advertising. And we did sell more houses. We did form a team. We did make more gross revenue. We did win more awards. We didn't win more recognition and all the rest of it. But our net profit was less than it was the first year when we sold real estate, when it was just Julie and I basically doing the real work of real estate. We are actually moving away from our goal, which was essentially creating financial independence for ourselves. We stayed on that wrong path for probably 2 or 3 years. And then one day, our accountant came to visit us. And he pointed out to us that we were actually making less money even though we were selling like 5 times the number of homes and getting 10 times the amount of attention. We were actually making less net profit than we had in the first year we sold real estate. First year we sold real estate, we made like $300,000, by the way. All right, so where's all this lead? And by the way, this was in the 90s. So $300,000 back in the 90s would have been equivalent to probably about $1 million now. It was really doing well. So what happened is we just decided, okay, this doesn't make sense. We're going to go back to focusing on listings. We're going to go back to being proactive lead generators. We're going to get rid of some, the buyer agents who weren't making enough of a profit, and basically it became an adult daycare. We're going to decide to run the business around the idea that we're going to create a lot of profit, and we did. And guess what happened? We got our train back on the tracks, and we started buying more rental properties. And so that whole, where that all went is then we started having a lot of other people who had been up and down that mountain who wanted us to coach them and help them not make the same mistakes. And our coaching business took off. But what I just told you was proof that Julie and I have done the proactive lead generation and the passive lead generation. That's the reason we can talk with so much authority about the ebbs and the flows about both of those strategies. At the end of the day, if you can only choose to do one, do the one that makes the most damn net profit. How about that? Doesn't that make sense?
Seems logical to me. Yes. All right. Number 5. This is the last point in our first section. Embrace the unexpected. Some of you do not do proactive lead generation because you fear not knowing what to say, how to say it, or the answers to questions they may ask. Only some questions will have a ready answer or a scripted answer. So when in doubt, this is one of the scripts we teach you. This is called the Save Your Bacon script. That's a great question. Let me write it down and I'll get you an answer by 6 p.m. tonight or by 10 a.m. tomorrow.
You can even add that. Like, that's a really great question. I appreciate you asking. Let me do some homework on that. And so I give you the exact, correct answer, and I'll get back with you in the next 15 minutes or an hour or whatever, right?
Yes. It's okay to not have every answer instantly. Stop not prospecting because you live in fear of that. Get the knowledge you need and circle back with the answer. This is why you can go to your coach. This is why we have daily semi-private coaching sessions where you can get your your questions answered live. You can ask your coach. Sometimes you can ask your broker. You can certainly do things like refer to we do Friday talking points that answer some of these questions. What's happening with the market? What's happening with interest rates? All that kind of stuff. But it's okay to say, that's a great question. I'm going to get back with you. So embrace the unexpected and stop putting pressure on yourself to know everything all the time. Because when you do that, after many coaching calls like that, I really do think that's an expression of ego, is expecting yourself to be perfect at it and have the right answers all the time.
But it's an expression of ego, Jules, but it's also basically a fancy way.
It's
procrastination. And, procrastination is just a fancy way of saying lazy. So, a lot of you are offended, aren't you? If you're offended because you think I was just calling you lazy, even though, we're in front of thousands of people right now, and I'm not calling you lazy personally. But if you took that offensively, it's probably because your intuition or your inner you is calling you out, saying, you know what, Bob? Maybe Tim and Julie are right. Maybe the real reason that you haven't actually done the real work of real estate isn't because, it's all the things you've been telling yourself. Maybe you're just being a little lazy. And just accept it, own it, and move past it. Julie, this last bit's pretty good.
That's right. Fire the lazy you. All right. Mindset and strategy. Serving over selling. Point number 1, adopt a service mindset. This is one of the most powerful things that I've seen coaching clients turn the corner on this when they just adopt a service mindset.
Because it unplugs your ego. That's why. You stop making it about yourself and you start making it about the person who is on the other end of the phone that you're trying to help. That's right. Really one of the key breakthrough moments that you should allow yourself to experience, especially if you're more amiable or analytical in nature. Those are the personality types that struggle the most with wanting to come off too pushy or too aggressive, or I don't want to be perceived as this or perceived as that, or I don't want them thinking this about me or that about me. That's just your ego pulling you down into a deep hole of failure. You got to realize that your highest and truest purpose on this planet is being of service to other people. The folks that you've chosen to be of service to professionally are buyers and sellers. Point number 2.
Smart prospecting. Now, I've got a couple of stats to point out to this. Circle prospecting. Circle prospecting is where you choose a neighborhood and you just start dialing whoever you've got in your dialer. You have no reason to believe that any of them are buyers or sellers. They're not FSBOs. They're not expires. They're just, you like the neighborhood, right? Here's the problem. I just revised this down today because I read a new stat about it today. Only 11 people out of 1,000 are moving currently. 11. Usually it's more like 20. Average over about 20 years is about 17 people out of 1,000. Even if it's 30 out of 1,000, that's still a terrible ratio.
What she's trying to tell you is smart prospecting is not circle prospecting. Circle prospecting is dumb prospecting because it's largely a waste of time.
It's the coldest cold call you could possibly coldly make. Okay? Focus instead on expired listings, probate leads, and FSBOs, which offer more targeted, meaningful conversations that often turn into actual appointments. When you call 10 expireds, 100% of them, at least in theory, want to, and many have to sell their homes. FSBOs are handing you their phone number. They have a house to sell. That's a way better ratio than 11 out of 1,000. I would never do that.
By the way, if you're looking for a great lead source for expired listings, use RedX. Text the word RED, R-E-D, to 47372, and they'll extend a $150 discount if you're a new user to RedX. And what they do is they go into your MLS and they search out all the phone numbers for that expired listing, make sure it's not relisted, send you some market information on the house, and then you can call them and you can have everything at your fingertips. Again, what a lot of you will do is you'll use the excuse, I have to research these expireds before I call them. No, you don't. Use RedX. get on the phone, use our script, have the conversation, set the appointment, take the listing, make the money, help the person. That's your job. That is what you're supposed to be doing in real estate.
Lather, rinse, repeat.
Right. So text the word RED, R-E-D, to 47372.
All right, now point number 3 in this section, target neighborhood needs. This is one of my favorite ways to get coaching clients to actually prospect. Look for homes meeting your buyer's criteria and prospect in those neighborhoods. Some homes will be a match for your buyers and others will be great listing leads for you. I find many of you are way more likely to pick up the phone when you have a specific need that you're looking to serve. You've got all of you listening, nearly all of you. Maybe if you just got your license this morning, you don't have anybody yet, but I bet you do. You have buyers who say, I want to live in XYZ neighborhood. Prospect that neighborhood. Number 4, active listening is key. Really hear what your prospects are saying. Build trust by being present in each call and resist the urge to rush. That's the most common thing I hear when I listen to prospecting calls is agents will jump on the end of the other person's sentence. They're anxious to move the call forward. It gives a sense of nervousness and like they're not really listening. Well, so you've got to fix that.
Exactly. So you have to pace the call. And when you're using our conversation outlines, AKA scripts, and somebody says something, you say, interesting.
Tell me more about that.
Tell me more about, no, I wouldn't use tell me more about that because then you'll get off the script. So interesting. I'm glad you said that. That's a great point. And then go right back to the script. Oh, so you're thinking about selling in the spring. Interesting. And they get right back to the script.
Yes. The other thing that I hear is they don't actually listen for the answer. They answer the question for the person because they think that they know.
Right.
So, you have to be careful. And all of these things get better the more you do them. Last point of this section for today, number 5, reframe rejection. Each no brings you closer to a yes. Think like a 5-year-old in the toy aisle, relentless and resilient. Just keep asking, keep pushing because that yes is out there. Remember that it's not no forever. It's just not no for now. Maybe they just, honest to God, don't need help buying or selling real estate. That's not rejecting you. That's just telling you they don't need you right now.
And by the way, when you're calling the folks that already have their hands in their air saying they actually have a house to sell, we teach, there's 20 different sources roughly, and we teach you how to go after each of them in Premier Coaching. But when you are calling those folks, you already have the biggest question answered. Do you have a house to sell? You already know that they do. And then effectively, you find out what their motivation is. You pre-qualify them. Now you know their time frame. Now you know if you're competing with anybody else. Now you have an idea of exactly what it's going to take to serve that potential seller. That's the ball of wax. And yet, how many of you right now are listening, telling yourself, you know what, Tim? I'm just going to go buy a lead. You know what, Tim? I'm just going to go work on my branding or my marketing or my website. I'm just going to go make a bunch of videos. I'm going to wait around for people to call me. Okay, that's a decision. Or you could actually do the real work of real estate and put yourself in front of people that have already put a sign in their yard, sometime quite literally or for sale by owner, saying, yes, I want to sell my house. And, the very visible that you drove past today on your way to Starbucks, to meet with a buyer that's not even motivated because you didn't pre-qualify them, that buyer. So and the one you drove past, and the 3 expired. Okay, those are the ones that you should be chasing. Doesn't it just make sense? So it takes skill. So it takes you moving past your ego. So it takes you maybe becoming the better version of you as a real estate professional. You can do it.
I had a very similar conversation with one of my private coaching clients, Shauna, if you're listening, in Alton, Illinois, where we were talking about upgrading her listing inventory and choosing, which you can do with expireds and for sale by owners, and targeting them, and that she is a very skilled, experienced agent that doesn't have to talk to a gajillion people to set an appointment. I think I gave her a hard enough time because within a half an hour of hanging up with that coaching call, she had already set an expired appointment. And that's awesome. So more of that. Lather, rinse, repeat.
Since we're calling out coaching clients, look at Chuck Williamson. Mm-hmm. He's one of the most successful agents in the country that you've never heard of. And it's not that I haven't tried to get him on the podcast. He won't come on the podcast because he doesn't want the attention. He doesn't want the adulation. He just wants to keep his head down. And he wants to basically do his proactive lead generating. And he wants to take listings. And you know how much this guy earns per year? I'm not going to tell you, but I will tell you it's over $1 million. And his average sale price is less than $300, maybe $325. And he sells in Wilson, North Carolina. Mm-hmm. Right. And he's part of our EXP family. But I believe in the United States, he's either number 1 or one of the top 5 individual known team earners at EXP. And one of the other ones is John Walkinshaw up in Canada.
Yeah.
In Quebec, right?
Yeah. Ontario region.
Ontario,
You
yeah.
got it.
Yeah, that's completely different. Yeah. So in any event, the point is that the ones that are actually making the most money, the most net profit in this business are the ones you've never heard of before, because they're not looking for the love and affection, the adornment of the industry. They're looking just to basically put themselves out there every single day, help other people and make money. Again, what's your goal? Why'd you get into real estate? Did you get into real estate for more awards? Did you get into real estate so you could be a real estate influencer? If you have to choose between being rich and famous, dear listener, and you do, if you have to choose between rich and famous, what will you choose? You cannot just say, oh, I'm going to be famous and then that'll make me rich. Not true. So if you have to choose between being rich and famous, which will you choose? Ask yourself that question. I strongly suggest you choose to be rich, because as you grow older, you'll care less and less and less about being famous, and you'll be almost ashamed that you spent so much time and money and potential profit on trying to make yourself famous, make yourself into an influencer when you were younger. Don't allow your ego to sucker you into financial oblivion. Focus on building a profitable business by becoming the best version of yourself as a real estate practitioner. Your whole mindset is about being of service to other people. Set aside the it's about you. Set aside the need for recognition. Set aside all that ego stuff and focus on being of service to other people. Focus on knowing what to say and how to say it. Focus on actually closing transactions in a high volume that have virtually all of the commission check going to your profit. You can do that. We'll show you how. That's what Premier Coaching is all about.
That's right. What I was hearing in my head, summarizing what you just said in these points today, is the simplification of lead generation. There's so many ways to complicate it, overcomplicate it, procrastinate it, make up things about it. Every single point that we gave you today, which were 10 points with 2 different topics on getting over your phone fear, it all simplifies it. Look at who you're calling. Look at how you're calling, what you're saying, how frequently you're doing this. Simplify it, and you're going to be a lot happier.
I was watching a video today on Instagram. I shouldn't even say this, but it was somebody who was running a little educational event, one of these wannabe coach types, and he had probably 25 people in the audience. And some guy stood up and said, I've been passing out flyers in a community. I've been putting on people's doors and their mailboxes and all the rest of it. And his big revelation, this guru, air quoting, was like, oh, here's what you need to do. You need to put QWR codes on the flyer. Okay, 1990s wants its marketing idea back. But you want to put QWR, and when they click the code, it's going to be information on the community. It's going to be a video about this. It's going to be a video about that. It's going to be all these. So all he was doing is taking this guy's effort of putting out flyers and telling him how to make the flyers a little bit more complicated. That's in essence what he was doing. And I was listening to this poor guy asking for advice. And here's what I was thinking. Stop passing out flyers and start knocking on the damn doors if you're going to do that type of work, and have conversations with folks. Let them know you're working with buyers in the area. Use our scripts. Find out if they know of anyone that's thinking about buying or selling real estate. Passing out flyers and doing that kind of crap. What the hell? Actually put yourself in a position to have conversations. The more conversations you have, dear listener, the more people you're going to help, should be obvious, and the more money you're going to make.
That's right. I actually had somebody stop me. I was driving home from school this morning, and it was an agent. I don't know who this was. I hadn't met her before. She was passing out her flyer for a high-end lease in the neighborhood, which was also for sale. But she actually had the guts to ask me. She's like, you live here, you look familiar. And I told her yes. And she goes, well, I've got this property that I'm trying to lease. Who do you know who could use my help? I really need to get this done for my sellers. And I was just really proud of her. She had to keep going. I had to keep going. But I made note to self, at least she had the guts to say it and have real conversations and was out there working her listing. That's how it's done. I mean, I always remind coaching clients, look, when you look at a great new listing, somebody entered it in your office, it popped up on your inner office email. That's a beautiful listing. How did that person get that listing? There was a conversation. Somebody probably knew them. There was a question asked, a question answered. They were there to be of service. That's why they got that listing and you didn't. You've got to be the one having the conversations.
That's it. That's as complicated as all this is. Julie, I was on somebody else's podcast, and this guy was all about marketing and branding.
Right.
And he was very nice and respectful, and he knew what he was getting into having me on his podcast.
Hopefully.
So, and Julie and I are advocates of marketing and branding, but you just got to see it in its place. You can do the proactive lead generation first, and the marketing and branding second. The advertising second. And so we were having this conversation, and it basically, he had these questions that were okay, and then I got bored of answering his just okay questions. So I made it into a conversation, and I started sort of in essence coaching him on some of the things that he'd been teaching other agents to do and pointing out respectfully, dear listener, I was being nice, the fallacy in a lot of this marketing and branding gimmickry. Like, why are you doing, so I want you to explain to me why you're telling agents to do marketing and branding. Well, it's because they then will build themselves a reputation in the community, the marketplace of being successful, having been community experts because they provided all this free information, videos and walkthroughs of the Starbucks and the school and, giving updated, whatever, right? Okay, there's that, right? Sort of a constant stream of public service announcements, right? And so what comes from that? Well, then they're going to be seen as somebody that's contributing and people, think of them. They want, ultimately what their goal is to have consumers in that particular marketplace correlate the word, Bob with real estate Bob, right? Because Bob's everywhere after all. He's passing out all this helpful information, whatever. All right, so how long would something like that take? Well, there's no deadlines on it. A campaign like this could take forever, and you want to have multiple things going at once. You want to run digital campaigns, and I mean, he was in his wheelhouse, right? You want to do direct mail, you want to do community things. All right, so what point, given your plan, does someone actually start to make money? And by the way, what point in your plan does how much would all this take, cost-wise, to actually implement? Okay, and then ultimately, what's the point of your plan? Is it to convince the marketplace that you're trying to build a reputation, right? Isn't that in essence what you're doing with all this marketing branding? Yeah, well, we call it branding, it's kind of being condescending to me, and that's fine. I was setting him up as you were about to listen. And I said, so you're conflating the word branding with reputation. So if I build a brand, that's the same as having a reputation. Is that what you're saying? Well, yes, it's just a more modern way of saying reputation. And I said, no, it's not, because reputation you earn, brand you buy. And people know the difference. You're not going to fool a bunch of sellers in a community that you're something that you're not just because you basically pass out, flyers, advertising, whatever the hell it is. They're going to judge you based on how many listings you successfully took and sold in their marketplace. They're going to judge you based on what you've actually done. Your reputation is earned over lots of transactions, over lots of time. And what a lot of you guys have been seduced into believing, and I get it, I know why, because it takes work to do it the real way, but to do it the faker's way, the way that doesn't really work, it doesn't last, is by buying your business and trying to build a brand. Your brand only comes after you've actually earned a really great reputation. And those two words should not be conflated. Reputation is what you want. Oh, you want to sell your house in this marketplace? You go to Bob. Well, hold on. Can you imagine a seller? Well, I just received, 15 flyers from, Steve and Betty. Yeah, but Bob's sold signs are everywhere. You want to obviously list with Bob, right? Isn't that obvious to all of you guys? So stop trying to convince the marketplace you're not and start earning your right to have the reputation that you really, truly want.
Absolutely. You know what frosts my cookies the most about that is...
Frosted your cookies?
No, I'm borrowing that from another podcast. Is that the people that peddle those ideas...
Now I want a damn cookie. Thank you, Julie.
Sorry. People that peddle those ideas. And, it's okay to do those public service information, videos about
but
your public
do the
library.
proactive lead generation.
Okay, but the thing that steams me about that is the people that do that they're not leading with the best interest of that agent in mind. That agent's bills do not stop while they wait for that crap to work. They still have a family to feed. They still have a car payment to make. And how many agents have crashed and burned too soon out of this business because they just ran out of room on their credit card? They didn't get successful fast enough because they weren't closing transactions. Meanwhile, they were paying for all this. They were, shelling out money to Zillow or shelling out money to their
and
whatever.
It's basically the feedback loop is closed, right? Because you guys, when you buy into this, what happens is you also just start listening to the same. It's an echo chamber. You're essentially caught in this downward spiral, and you don't even know that you're going downward.
Well, because what do they say? You call and you say it's not working for me. They say, well, you haven't spent enough time yet, which means you haven't spent enough money yet.
How many of you guys have wasted time trying to crack the new Instagram algorithm or wherever the hell the latest Mickey Mouse is that you're trying to be sold? You know what, guys? You can give yourself permission to be Chuck Williamson and some of these other great agents in the country, and you can actually avoid all that crap, but you cannot avoid knowing how to have meaningful conversations with decision-making adults about buying or selling real estate. Even if you do generate leads from, passive lead generation, buying business, marketing, advertising, if you cannot have a meaningful conversation with decision-making adults about buying or selling real estate, they're not going to do business with you. And one of the first questions they're going to ask you isn't how many damn followers you have on TikTok. They're going to know how many homes you sold last year. You guys get the difference? We're telling you the truth. And I realize the truth we're telling you, it means you're going to have to do some things that you don't want to do when you don't want to do them at the highest level, but it's still the truth. And it always will be the truth. And we're never going to tell you anything but the truth. So
also, we did it ourselves.
Yes. So help me God.
Experience.
I mean,
Yes,
that's the truth.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's right.
So hopefully this motivates all of you guys. If you are listening to this podcast after 30 minutes today, I know you're feeling educated and you're feeling motivated. Now, please get into action. Your action point from today's podcast is do consider giving us a 5-star review over on iTunes and leave a comment while you listen to this podcast every day, as thousands of you do. We certainly appreciate the feedback we get from all of you about the meaningful impact we've made in your lives. You guys have a fantastic day. We'll talk with you on the show tomorrow.